All right then. So first, what we have to do is we have to create a new folder in this desktop. So let me create a new folder over here, and let's name it as YouTube Prisma tutorial or something. So let me open this project in the Visual Studio Code so that we can work along with it. All we have to install the Visual Studio Code alone. That's more than enough. Or you can feel free to use the editor as you wish. Okay, so here, so we created the project folder. So let's open up the terminal. So first of all, what we have to do is we have to initialize the package, right? So we have to initialize the node modules first. So yarn init. So if you're not using the yarn, so it's the best way to use the yarn. So all we have to do is to run the command like npm install -g yarn. So this will allow you to install the yarn globally so that you can access the yarn at any point whenever it's needed. So I already did that. So in this case, I'm just going to run yarn init. So hit the enter. So it's asking you to use whether the package name of this is going to be the same name as your folder name. Of course, in this case, I'm just going to hit enter, 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 and just allow enter. Cool. So now we have the package.json in our hand. You can see that the name, the version, and the license and everything as we needed. All right. So now we have to install a certain packages before jumping into the videos and before jumping into the files, codings, and everything. So what we have to do is, so we have to install the certain packages which is needed. So of course, this video is all about the Prisma, right? So we need to install the Prisma and the Prisma client, and we need to create the Express and .env and cores and lots of packages also. So let's go ahead and install one by one. So let me clear it. All we have to say is yarn. So we need to add certain packages. So let's say yarn add Express. Of course, we need the Express to create our server Express. Then we need the cores to enable the cross-origin platform for the future upgrades of your projects, and .env. This will help you to load the environment variables. Then we need the async handler. So we need the Express -async handler. So don't misspell anything, or else just search for these packages in the online and copy it and paste it. All right. So then we need Express. We already did that. Then I need the cookie parser. So cookie parser. All right. And of course, at last we need the Prisma, and we need the Prisma Client. I forgot, @Prisma/client. So these are the packages that we needed for this project. All right. And of course, cookie parser is not that much needed for right now, but anyways, we'll add it for the future purpose. So let's say yarn add Express, make sure that's spelled properly, cores.env, Express async handler, cookie parser, Prisma, and Prisma client. All right, so let's hit enter. So this definitely will take some time, so sit tight until it gets successfully installed. All right, then in this case, it's successfully installed for me, and you can see we do have this node modules and everything. All right, so next what we have to do is we have to create our index.js file. So let's create in our root directory, let's create a new file called index.js. All right, because the reason why I'm keeping it as index.js, because in the package.json, our main file, it's noted as the index.js. All right, so if you are changing the name, so don't forget to change the name over here. All right, so then all we have to do, I'm just going to say console.log, and I'm just going to say hi there. Just for time being, we need to make sure. So now we need to figure out some way that we need to trigger this file, right? So what I need to do is to just go here. After the license, I'm just going to call the object called scripts, hit the tab, and inside we have a command called start. So whenever I hit this start option, we need to trigger this, right? So we need to trigger this file. So to trigger this file, of course, we need one more package that we forgot to install, which is nothing but let's say yarn add node mod. This is the package that we need to trigger the index.js file at the very first. So all I have to say here is the node mod index.js. So now all I have to say, let's yarn 1 second. Override it. Yes. So here now all we have to trigger this command just by using yarn start. So if I say yarn start, so that will gives you the console.log, and you can see that our server file is keep on running over here, right? So let's stop the server. So now we know that the server file is up and running perfectly fine, right? All right, then, so the next important step that we need to change this. So I'm just going to change this, the complete file, the package.json file, the JavaScript file as a module, right? By default, it's just a plain old script file. It doesn't support the import statement. So all we have to use the required. So let's say what I'm saying is, so if I want to import a package, so all I have to say const express or something is equals to require express. So let's say I want to import it in this way, just like the way what we used to do in the React and everything. So let's say import express from express, just like this. So if I want to do in this way, so I need to change the type of the file into a module. So let's say type is going to be module. So by default, it is in a common JS file. So if you change this file from type to module, so you don't have to create or import the packages just like this. You can directly do it in this way, right? So that will make our life easier compared to that. So that's up to the developer. Okay, this is just another way that we can do it. All right. So then now what we have to do is, so we do have the index.js file and we did imported the express. So let's import the .env. Of course, we need to bring the environment file. So from .env, then we need to import the course package from course. Then I need to bring the cookie parser. So import cookie parser from the cookie parser. Then all I have to do is to configure our environment variable. So .env.config. That's a function. Let's call it globally. Then I need to create an app. So const app is equals to express app. Enter. So let's say we need to create a port. Basically, that port number, we are going to bring it from the environment variable. So let's create an environment variable file .env, and I'm going to say the port as by default as 8000. Save it, and let's bring it over here. So const port is equals to process.env. So this will help us to fetch the values from the environment variable file. So port, if it doesn't have that value, then use the default port as 3000, right? Then I need to instruct that this express app is going to use the JSON data type. We are going to use the JSON data model. So let's say app.use express.json. Then I need to enable the cookie parser. So let's say app.use cookie parser. Then of course we need to enable the course, the cross-origin platform also. So let's say app.use course. All right. So finally we need to make sure that it's listening to our specific port or not. So let's say app.listen, open it. So this should listen to the port which we created over here. If it is listening to that port, we need to call this callback function, and let's make sure it's listening to that specific port. So let's say console.log, use the dynamic string literals, and let's say server listening to port. All right. So let's say this changes, and let's make sure everything is working fine. So let's hit, and let's say yarn start. So now you should get the message as server is listening to the port 8000. So what happens that if you fail to add this type as module, if I save this changes, now your server should be crashed because you should get this error message. Okay, so here it's throwing the error, the place where you are inserting the modules. And What is the error? It's not giving the deep message. So this is crashed because of this import statement, just because of this import statement. So if I release that, that error will be solved, right? So please make sure that you added this. So then now we do have all our apps and everything. Okay, so now what we need to do is, so we have to create a new folder. So to create the Prisma schema, right? So what we have to do is, so before, I'm just going to create a new folder called Prisma, and inside this Prisma folder I'm going to create a new file and name it as schema.prisma, right? That's the extension of this Prisma file. So I'm just going to zoom it a little bit so that you can able to follow through very clearly. So inside the schema, so before jumping into writing the codes and everything, so you should install this extension Prisma. So make sure that you download and install this extension. This will help you to write the schema snippets in a much easier way. So please make sure that you download that Prisma's extension. So once you're done with that, so first what we need to do, we need to generate the client. So we need to generate the client. Then what's the next step? Then we need to give the data source, which can be a MongoDB or something else, right? Or you can use the Postgres SQL. In this case, we're going to use the MongoDB to make it easier to understand it much easier way, right? So then first let's generate the client. So let's say generator client. Okay, open it. Client is an object that which we are creating. Then I'm just going to give the provider data. So basically the provider is going to be Prisma Client.js. Usually all these things is an auto suggestion except this particular object, which is custom created by the user. And this generator, provider, and this Prisma client, everything will be auto generated if you install that Prisma snippet, right? Then we need to create the data source. So let's say data source. I'm going to create the object as DB, open it. And the provider, it's going to be, you can use this kinds of different DBs over here. In this case, we're going to use the MongoDB. So choose the MongoDB. Then you need to supply the URL. So URL. So I'm going to load the database URL, which is coming from our environment. So to load the environment variable inside your Prisma, you need to use this env function. Then you need to supply the database URL. So this is supposed to be that environment variable. So over here, I need to paste it and I need to supply the MongoDB URL inside over here. So before coming to a finalization over here, we don't have the MongoDB URL, which means we haven't created any cluster or anything. So let's go ahead and create the cluster. So go ahead and search for MongoDB. Click here. All right. So it's loading. So let's wait. So let me click sign in. Click Google sign in or GitHub sign in as you wish. In this case, I'm going to use the Google sign in. Hit it. All right, it's taking more than a while. I'm not sure why. Okay, it's loading. All right. So if you are using a MongoDB for very first time, so this will look exactly what you're seeing right now for you. So what you have to do is you have to create a cluster first. So click create new and choose the clusters. So you can choose the Google Cloud or AWS as you wish. In this case, you can see dedicated, serverless. These are paid ones. If you want free, you can go for shared. Okay, so they will give you the 512 MB of free storage for your database and everything. So choose it and choose your nearby location and choose the cluster type, what type you want, and you can choose the cluster and different name for your cluster. Once you've finished, click create cluster. In this case, I do already have a cluster, so I don't have to create. But in the shared hosting, you can able to create only one cluster. Keep it in mind. So once you created that, all we have to do is to jump to the network access over here. So you need to enable the network access. So currently I do have 3 different network access over here because this is the global network access. I can access it from anywhere, and these 2 are private network access. So all you have to do is to click add IP address, and you can choose your add current IP address, or you can choose this global IP address. Just you have to say 0.0.0.0.0, sorry, 0.0.0.0, something like that. Okay, so this will add the global access. You can access this cluster from at any point from different access. Once you're done with that, all you have to do, go to the databases, or you can, oh sorry, you need to go to the database access. You need to create an access to access your database. You need to create a user. So you need to click this new add new data user. So you can type your username and you can type your user password and what kind of role that you need to assign for that specific user. So once you finish the user, and don't forget the password, please. Okay, so once you're done with that, all you have to do is to go to the database, and to move into the database, you have to click this browse collections, right? So we might have different database at every single point, right? So sometimes if the user already have some knowledge in MongoDB, they might have a different databases inside in it. So in this case, I'm just going to create a new database. If you don't have any database, not a problem, just follow through it from here. So I'm just going to say create new database, and I'm going to give the database as let's say Prisma hyphen tutorial or something. So inside this, I need to give some dummy collection. So let's say user or something. I'm going to create a new collection inside, which is empty, Prisma tutorial. All right, so now we do have this collection. So we need to get the URL of this collection, right? So what we have to, we need to get the accessible URL for this database. So what we have to do is to click the overview. Okay, so here we can see the connect options, or else just click the database. That will take you to the root folder of the database. There you can able to see the connect option. So click the connect and click the drivers option and choose the Node.js over here, right? Then you can see this connection URL. So copy it and let's jump to here and go to the env folder and paste it over here. So just replace this password, including the angular brackets. Type your own password. In this case, I'm just going to use the password as admin because that's my user password. All right. So then we need to specify the database URL. Unless if you don't specify the database URL, you will get the error as MongoDB connection string error or something like that, right? Because we doesn't specify what database that we need to use on. So if you don't have a database in it, that's fine, it will work perfectly. But if you're having multiple databases, it will throw an error. But the best way is to add the database URL. So where I can add the database URL and add database name. So you can add it right after this comma and before this question mark, right? So let's go here and let me go to the browse collections and let me see what is the exact database I created. Prisma tutorial, right? So I'm just going to type the name as Prisma hyphen tutorial. So make sure that you spelled properly. So Prisma hyphen tutorial. Yes, that's good. So let's save these changes and let's save the changes over here also. Now we are good. So next, what we have to do is, so let's make sure that we are not getting any error over here. Cool, we are not getting any error so far. Okay, that means everything is perfectly fine. So now what I need to do is I need to create a model. That means the schema, the table model that I need to design it. So for that, we are going to use the model object and type your table name over here. In this case, my table name is going to be user, and let me open it. And here I need to specify all the necessary fields that is going to be inside the table. So I'm just going to say, let's say ID. Of course, that is going to be string data type. We need to specify the data type. And what we need to do is I need to map this particular ID to the ID which is automatically generated by the MongoDB, because MongoDB generate the ID in this way. So I need to map that specific ID with this. So what I need to do is I need to say at ID, the prop which we created, the field which we created, that should be automatically generated by default. So at default auto function, and it need to be mapped with the underscore ID, which is the object ID of your database. So at map, and it's going to be underscore ID. This is the ID which is generated by the MongoDB, and that is the object ID of your database. So underscore object ID. Cool, right? Then what you need to do is you need to give the first name. So first name, of course, it's going to be string. Then last name, of course, that's also going to be string. And we need to have the email. So basically this email needs to be a unique email, because that's how the user can log in with our database. So string, and we can use it as the unique property at unique. All right, and let's keep it as the skills, and this is going to be a JSON data format, which is a new data type that we haven't heard about in any kind of programming languages, right? Because JSON is the data format, but it doesn't appear as a data type in any programming language. So in this case, you can use the JSON data as a data type itself, and then the Prisma model. All right, I'm just going to keep it as the JSON data type. So save these changes. That's it. You don't have to do anything else. So once you finish this, all we have to do is to stop the server, and all I have to, so make sure that you're not getting any errors over here, right? So here I'm just going to say yarn Prisma db push. Okay, so if you hit enter, that will try to push this into your database Prisma tutorial, and you can see it generated the table successfully. Then what we need to do is we have to generate this for the Prisma client. So let's say yarn Prisma generate. So this will push your schema model into the database, and this will generate the Prisma client so that you can use it inside your server coding. So hit the enter, and now you can see it generated the Prisma code. Now I hope you understand why the reason I changed this import way into a type module, right? This one I'm talking about, type module. If it is a common JS, the import method of the server-side coding is different. So that's a reason we changed it, because the Prisma client is giving in that type module type, right? That's the reason we changed. Now let's go to our MongoDB table, and let's click the Prisma, and let's refresh it. And now you should able to see a new table over here, the new collection which we created called user over there. This user is created by myself, which doesn't have anything in it. And this, let me delete it, user, let me drop that one, I don't need that. And this user, which is generated by the MongoDB, this user is generated by the Prisma inside the MongoDB, right? So let's get back here. All right, cool. So now the schema, everything is done. So next, what we have to do, of course, we need to jump into the routes. So I'm going to create a new routes over here. Let's say routes, and of course we need the controllers to do actions for those specific API endpoint. All right. So now what we need to do is, so here, go to the index.js, and right after here, specify the routes, here. So in that case, the first route is going to be the user routes. So app.use, anything which comes like API/users, then you should load this user routes. So we haven't created this user routes, so let's jump into the routes. So I'm just going to create a new file called user routes.js, and inside the controller I'm going to create a new file called user controller.js, right? Inside the user routes, so now what we need to do is, all we have to do is to create a router. So let's import the express first. So let's import the express. It's imported. Then now what we need to do, const router is equals to express dot router. This method will help you to create a router object. Then I need to export this router first. So export this router object as in the exact same name what we used over here. Paste it, and now you can import it over there. So here I'm just going to say save these changes, and let's try to import it. make sure it imported. And one more thing that you have to do is it will not add the .js link over there because you need to add it manually. So .js. So make sure that you add the .js over here. Save these changes. All right. So right after here, I'm going to create an API endpoint, which is going to be router.post. And of course, it's going to be create. I'm going to call a create user controller. So this is the control that we haven't created yet. So let me copy this. And now what we have to do is let's jump into our controller, and we need to create a new controller over there. So go here, and I'm going to say we need to bring the controller. So export const this create user controller. So before that, what we have to do is we have to bring the configuration files for the Prisma and everything, right? So to do that, we have to create the Prisma configurations first, because this is the link. We haven't created a client. We need to do that first. So let's go here and create a config folder in the root directory. So let's say config. Inside this config folder, all I have to do is let's say Prisma config.js, right? Inside this Prisma config, all we have to do is copy this link, copy this content, copy and paste it. That's it. You don't have to do anything else apart from it. Then we have to export this Prisma object. That's it. Nothing else. Close it. Then what we have to do is jump into the user controller. So inside this user controller, so first I need to import the async handler from express async handler. Then I need to import the Prisma object, which we exported from our config folder. So from /config/Prisma config.js. All right. So make sure that you do have that object. Cool. Now we have that object. Now all I have to do is to export const. We have to create this controller and use the async handler method. Inside that, use async, open and callback function, and let's say request comma response. Open it. And inside here, for the time being, I'm just going to say console.log creating new user, save the changes. So let's import it over here. Make sure that it's imported from the user controller.js. Cool. So this user controller is coming from the user controller.js, right? And this user routes, it's coming from user routes.js. It should not give us any error. So if I hit start, cool. So far we don't have any mistakes over here. Everything is working fine. So now I need an application to check our API endpoints. So you can use Postman, or there is one more easiest way. We can use this Thunder client, which is really good to work with the APIs and everything. So let's go here to the extensions and search for Thunder client. So that will gives you a platform, or yeah, you can say the platform to check your API endpoints and everything, right? So please go ahead and install this, and let's open the, once you install it, you can see this extension over here. So click that. All you have to do is to create a new, go to the collections, create a new collection over here. So I'm just going to say this as the Prisma tutorial. So inside this Prisma tutorial, I'm going to create a new request called create a new user, right? So over here, all you have to do is to give the localhost URL. So let me copy this from here, http:/localhost. Instead of 3000, we need to give it 8000. And let's change this to post request, because that is what we are doing here, right? Then copy this API/users, then slash, and go to the user routes and copy this create and paste it over here. So now if everything is working fine, it will comes to this trigger, this particular route, and this create user controller will be triggered, and it will comes over here, and this console log will happen. So let's open the console log and let's go here, and if I click send, you will not get anything over here because we haven't returned any response for that. So let me cancel it, but you are getting this message over here, create new user, which means our route, it's been triggered properly, and the controller which is also triggered properly. So everything is working as we planned so far, right? So let's go to the user route. This is working, and user controller. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to delete this completely. So inside here, now what we need to do, we need to create the user. So but before creating that user, we need to make sure that email is already not existed in our database, right? So we don't want to create the user again and again if the user is having the same email ID. So we don't want to create the multiple accounts. To do that, all we have to do is to say let email. So we need to get the email object from the request dot body. Okay, so from the body, if that email, we can access that email. So we need to make sure that email doesn't exist. So let's say const user exists equals to await Prisma dot user object which we created. Then we have to say dot find unique. We need to use the find unique method to find the specific user by using the matching email. Open it, open the object. Then I'm going to use the var keyword, use the var object, just like writing the SQL query. So here I'm just going to check the email field. If that email field is equals to this email which we collected it from our payload, so that means the user is exist. So if the user doesn't exist, if not user exists, then what we have to do? If not user exists, I'm going to create a new user equals to await dot Prisma. So await Prisma dot user dot create, open it, and I'm going to create an object, and I'm going to supply the data with request dot body. All right, so if everything is done, I'm just going to say response dot status, which is going to be 200. Then I'm going to send an object, of course, which is a message first, like let's say user created successfully. Then the another object which is going to be the user itself. So let's say user. All right, so you can send it like this, user colon user, or you can simply send the user data itself. Both are same. If not, in the else part, we have to do the else part also. So that means the user data it's exists, that means 201 status, and send the message as user already registered with this email. Save the changes. Cool. So let's go ahead and check the what's that, whether that email is already exist or not. We have to make sure, right? So let's go ahead and check that. So here, let's come back here. I'm going to body, and I'm going to open this, and inside that we need to have this email field, right? So email, it's going to be retrieve.galaxy@gmail.com, something like this. So if I hit send, you should able to see this. Okay, so we are getting the message. So it's showing first name is missing. Okay, I think I made all those field as conditional field, so we need to change those field as an optional. Okay, so I forgot to do that. So what we can do is, so we can change all these fields as an optional field just by adding these question marks right after that. So these fields are optional, except this email is the conditional field, we need it. So for the time being, for the understanding sake, so save these changes. Now what I need to do is, let's go back to the MongoDB. So I need to delete this database now. So let me delete this. Okay, I don't need to delete that. Let me delete this. Let me drop this table. User, drop it. So once you dropped it, you can't able to see that database. Not an issue. That means it doesn't have any table in it. That's why it's not listing out over here. So it's removed that. So we again, what we have to do, let's stop this, clear it. All you have to do is to yarn Prisma DB push. So this will push the database, this table into your database again. Then you need to generate the client, yarn Prisma generate. So nothing will change. You will get the exact same thing over here, right? So all we have to do is to, let's say, yarn start. And now you should able to see, if you refresh this, you should be able to see your database and your table again. Inside this, you have this user table, right? So everything is working fine. So let's get back here. And now if I hit the send option, you should be able to see the data. So we can see it's automatically taking the null value, right? And you can see the ID, object ID is mapped to our ID field, and the email is generated. So this is how you can able to create an optional field and the conditional field. If you not specified the question mark at the end, that will become as a conditional field. That means that can't be empty. So if you want to make it as an option, just add the question mark at the end. That's fine. I forgot to tell that. Sorry. Right. So now we added this. If I hit send option again, now you will get the message as user already registered with this email. That means inside our database, if you go to your collection, you should be able to see that data which is stored over here. That means that email is already registered. That's the reason we are getting the message. That means the user object, which this is working perfectly, right? So let's go ahead and create a new field. So email, now we already added. What else that we need to add? Where is the schema? First name, last name, and skills, right? So let's go here and comma. Let me copy them better to avoid the spelling mistake. First name, then last name, then skills, right? So this is a JSON object. So let's open and close the JSON object over here. So I'm just going to use a different email over here because this email is already exist. So let's save it to at gmail.com, and name is going to be retrieve. Oops, my spelling is wrong. Retrieve, then Ravi, and skills over here. I'm just going to say HTML. Let's say 90, and CSS. I'm just going to say like 75, and JS. I'm just going to say that's also 75. Right? These are the skills. Now, if I hit send option, you should be able to see the first name, last name, and the skills, and everything is generated as it is. If you go here and if you refresh this one more time, you should be able to see your newly generated data over here like this. Cool, right? So now we do have all the necessary fields, and we added the necessary fields, and we know that this user controller is create user is working perfectly as it's supposed to be, right? So next, what we need to do is we need to write a code to fetch the complete details from the user data. So let's create a new route. So I'm just going to copy and paste over here, and I'm going to change this to get, and this is going to be get all, and this is going to be get all, which we haven't created. So don't save it, it will throw an error. So over here, let's come here and let's say get all the user from the database. All right. So export const get all. Make sure both are same. We don't want any unwanted issues. Save it. And let's bring the async handler function, and let's say async, and let's open a bracket callback function, and let's say request comma response. Oops, open the curly brackets and enter. So save these changes, and now you can able to import this guy over here. It's imported. Save the changes, and inside here. Now I need to get all the users. So const users is equals to await prisma dot user dot find many. You can find this method, find many, open it, open the curly brackets, and order by what field we can use to order. So we don't have any specific field to order by. We need to have it as a unique field to order it by. We can't order it by ID. All right, so let's leave it as it is for the time being. So I'm not going to order it by, so I'm just going to use the find many options. So then once I have all these data, all I have to do is to return status with return response dot status with. That means you need to make sure if you have that user, if user dot length is greater than 0, then I need to send it. Otherwise I need to send a different message, right? So if I need to send this over here, response dot status 200, and I just need to send the users object. If not, I just need to send a message as no data. That's it, right? If the user object length, that means if you do have any data, this will return an array. So if that array length is greater than 0, that means of course we do have some data in it. If not, we need to send this message, right? So let's go ahead and let's create one more request inside this Prisma tutorial. Create a new request and let's say get all users. So I'm just going to copy this URL completely from here and paste it here, and instead of this create, and I'm going to say get all and make sure that is a get request. So hit enter. So we should get the array of objects. That means our get all, it's working perfectly as it's supposed to be, right? So now let me show you how to get a single object from the database. So let's go ahead and get the single object. So to do that, all we have to do is to like what we need to do is just let's go ahead and create the route first. I'm just going to delete this. Let's go here and copy it, and here I'm going to supply the parameter as colon ID because I need to supply the ID. So here get user by ID. So I'm going to create that controller. So here get the single user information using its ID. So here now what we need to do is let's say export const, copy this get user by ID, paste it, equals to async handler and async method request comma response callback function, open it, save its changes and import it over here. Save it. Cool. So inside this method, now what we need to do is we need to write the coding to get the elements by using its ID. So first of all, we need to get that ID from the route, this parameter which we are passing. So to do that, so const destructure the object that we are getting from the request.params. Inside that we do have this object called ID from that specific route, right? So now what we need to do is now we have that ID. So I'm just going to say try and catch. So here I'm just going to say const user equals to await prisma dot user dot find unique. I'm going to fetch that data by using its ID. So var colon object ID, right? Usually we used to supply it like this ID because if that object name is different, then you can do that. In this case, object name is same and the parameter name is also same, so I don't have to supply it in a two different way. Just like this, say the changes. So if you do get the data, all we have to do is to send this user data. So I'm just going to copy that line, paste it, and change this object to user. I'm going to return the user which we fetched, or else I'm just going to return the message in a different way. Status is going to be 500, and message is going to be the error message, error dot message. Whatever the message that you got, we have to send it. Save the changes, and now all we have to do, get back here and create a new request, and let's say get user by ID, and I'm just going to copy this and paste it over here. And let's get back to the user routes, and yeah, it is ID, so we don't have to give anything over here, not here, where it is, here it is. We don't need this. And of course this is supposed to be in a get method only. It is in a get method, and now we need the data ID, right? So we need to give the ID. So instead of this, let me open this get all user, and there you can get the ID. So I'm just going to copy this ID and give that ID over here. So if I hit the send option, you should be able to get that specific data, right? If I'm adding something else, if I hit enter, so that is giving us a message, invalid Prisma user find unique, because that object ID is invalid. We know that because I just changed that ID. If I hit enter, I will get the data. So this is how you have to work with the Prisma. So Prisma will make your life much easier whenever you're writing the server-side coding.